The young divers, Mike and Jeff, had decided to see a gigantic cruise ship that had crashed on the land 10 years earlier, so they started out early in the morning. Not that the ship seemed particularly sturdy, and who knew what they may have found inside. Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. If something were to happen to one of them while they were out there, it may be pretty dangerous, and there was no way they could make it back to the shore in time. However, Jeff ignored her advice and started looking for a way into the structure. From the moment they boarded the cruise ship, they sensed the ominous atmosphere that surrounded them. The sound of the water slapping against the tank bottom and the cracking of the metal frame were the only sounds audible. The two of them said, "Wow, exactly same. I think we should head back," Mike said, but Jeff was already out of the room. They started off in the large, airy main hall, which included a massive staircase that led to the upper decks and high ceilings all around. They then continued on to the cabins. As Jeff and Mike strolled through the deserted corridors of the ship, they heard an odd noise. Mike was startled and asked Jeff whether he had heard it too, but Jeff shrugged and continued on. Jeff showed interest in venturing farther below deck to explore the ship's lowest levels after a short period. Their goal was at the top of a short stairway, but it was completely dark. The sound was far softer than a muffled scream, and it thoroughly terrified off Jeff and Mike. With fear in their eyes, they fixed one another with stares. They strolled for a short while before arriving at their destination. Knowing that there was no way for them to reach the bottom of the ship, they were perplexed as to why there was a dead end. In the corner, Mike saw a door. Jeff grabbed the doorknob and tugged as hard as he could to unlock the stuck door. He listened intently with his ear to the door. "There is no doubt that the sound is emanating from within this space," he said, moving to stand next to Mike and doing the same, straining his ear to the door. Suddenly, they heard something that almost made their hearts stop beating, which surprised them. A boat was drawing nearer to the ship, and they could hear the muffled sounds of men fighting with one another. It sounded as though they were boarding the cruise ship together. "Ship," Mike murmured, before adding, "I knew this was a bad idea." They understood how urgent their circumstances were. They raced back to the stairway, only to hear a set of rumbling footsteps from below, just as they were about to start climbing. They whirled around, retrieved their flashlights, and ducked behind the stairway so they wouldn't be seen. As the men moved down the metal ladder, they got closer and closer, and they held their breath in anticipation. The ship echoed with their heavy footsteps. 3 men descended the stairs and approached the locked door directly. When the men opened the door, Mike could see what was going on inside since they were being watched from where they were standing. Abruptly, the low cry grew considerably louder. "We have to get out of here as soon as possible," he said to himself. Those men not only outnumbered Mike and Jeff, but they were also significantly bigger and stronger than them. In addition, Mike noticed that one of them had a pistol, which added a great deal of difficulty to an already challenging position. After they agreed that it could take some time to contact the police, Mike plucked up the guts and agreed to accompany Jeff in peering behind the closed door to observe what the men were doing. They moved cautiously toward the exit, paying close attention to the men's talk as they did so. His heart felt like it was about to burst out of his chest, and he couldn't wait for the cops to arrive. Quietly, Jeff said, "All right, I'm getting ready." With a hasty retreat into the darkness, Jeff let Mike's eyelids open. After being left behind in the room, the man bolted out the door and made his way toward the stairs. Mike and Jeff could only hear the muted sounds of footsteps as they hurried for the chamber as soon as they could emerge from the shadows. Mike was going to follow Jeff when he heard the other men emerge from the basement. Jeff had pulled open the massive door and gone into the building. Mike became frozen, unable to think of anything to do. Jeff could see that the other man and the woman were fighting physically, and he could hear a woman sobbing, but it sounded like she had something trapped in her mouth. Jeff and Mike made a beeline for the woman. She was restrained, duct tape covering her lips, and forced to bind herself to a chair. Mike had unlocked her hands and Jeff had loosened her legs. Even though they were far away, they could still hear the police sirens. The woman was too fragile to stand on her own, so they helped her. The cops were shocked by the scenario they had been called to when they did eventually arrive. They took quick turns barging into the building and taking the two guys into custody. The woman was successfully taken to a secure area, but they needed Mike and Jeff to go with them to the police station. At the police station, Jeff and Mike were questioned and asked to provide a detailed description of everything that had happened. They were afraid they would be arrested by the authorities for being on the ship when they weren't permitted to be there in the first place. But the cops were relieved when the response was quite different from what they had expected. Because of the praise they received for their bravery, Jeff and Mike were released from custody. It became out later that the woman they had saved was everything but ordinary. She was the governor's daughter and had spent the last few days in captivity. By now, the person had already asked for money and then abruptly stopped communicating. The woman is probably not going to survive the night. The governor praised the young men and handed them each a sizable reward for their valiant efforts in saving his daughter because of Jeff and Mike's fast thinking. Both Jeff and Mike were still in disbelief at what had transpired. It was difficult for them to believe that this was truly happening to them. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.